Story 1. A couple of years ago, I was taking dual enrollment classes at a community college. My first semester, I took an American government class as I needed it for the high school credit. My professor had the class formatted so the only graded work was 3 tests, each worth a third of the grade, covering everything from the previous test until the class before. These tests were divided into 3 parts. The first part was 50 multiple choice questions filled out on a Scantron. The second part was 30 short answer questions. The third part was 20 harder short answer questions, but they were for extra credit, so they didn't count against you if you got them wrong or didn't answer. He also offered plenty of extra credit opportunities, like an easy one. Proof that you are registered to vote. He gave an alternative if you couldn't legally register. I got a very easy A in that class and was ready to move on to the next semester after my first semester of college classes was complete. I got an in the other college class. The rest were high school level taken elsewhere. I rather enjoyed the class. Even though I didn't agree with his politics, it was an interesting subject. He wasn't dry with it. And he taught from a somewhat politically neutral point of view, or at least stated both sides. 2 weeks after grades were posted, I got an email from a classmate I hadn't talked to a soul in that class, besides friendly small talk. It apparently was sent to the whole class, though I don't know how she got my email. She said that he should not teach any more classes because his teaching methods were outdated and his grading was unfair. She also said that numerous people failed his classes. She attached a petition that she was going to send to the school office. I don't know which department would be in charge of that, and also asked for people to visit the office to complain and give him a bad review on Rate My Professor. I was not amused and assumed that this was one of the people who was skipping class or slacking off in the back row. The class made it plenty easy to get an A and much easier to pass. His teaching methods were fine in my opinion, and I didn't think there was anything he could have done to make it easier to learn. I wrote a very lengthy and detailed reply that I may have perhaps hit reply all on, explaining why I would not be participating. I also made sure to give him 5/5 or whatever the top rating is on Rate My Professor to try and counter all the nonsense reviews that were getting ready to come in. I also sent him an email warning him what was going on, which he thanked me for. Recently, I decided to take a look to find out what happened after this, and he actually is still teaching as if nothing happened. I assume nothing came of the petition, so either they didn't get enough signatures or the dean knew it was nonsense. However, I looked at his Rate My Professor profile. He has a 3/5 with 111 reviews, and 10% would take again. I looked through and, sadly, most of the negative reviews were from that semester. There were a couple from this last semester because he was apparently having a bit of difficulty switching the class online. And so the class before a test normally review was cancelled, and he still gave the test as scheduled, just online. There's really not much more I can find out because I'm no longer at this community college. I graduated from high school a year ago and went to a 4-year public university. I need to mention that the classes at the 4-year school are much harder than the ones at the community college. If given the chance, I highly recommend dual enrollment. It got some general education out of the way. I got high school credit, and I got all A's, so it boosted my college grade point average. Story 2. Backstory. I 16 and my mom 52 are renting in a duplex. The building has outdoor outlets. We also have a neighbor who lives in the unit next to ours. Now onto the actual story. The neighbor liked to plug in his power tools into the outdoor outlets that were using the electricity mom pays for. He was doing this without her permission and without paying for the electricity he was using. Mom eventually discovered that there were outdoor outlets hooked up to our unit and that he was most likely using them to use his power tools. We also remembered hearing him with his tools near where those outlets were. We were both sick of him using the electricity she pays for without her permission. At first, we tried to see if we could just flip one of the circuit breakers to turn off those outlets. Apparently, one of the rooms inside our unit was on the same circuit. We had to think of something else. The thing we thought about was a set of locking outlet covers. Shortly after Mom installed them, our mooching neighbor knocked on the door. He was upset about the fact that there were now covers on the outlets and threatened to call the landlord. The landlord pretty much said that it was our right to keep people from stealing our resource using them without our permission. Story 3. This happened around Christmas. My grandmother had died the previous year, and my brother had been living with her. Before my grandmother died, he was told that the house would be sold, but he refused to move out, saying, "I am working on it." Not sure what he was working on, but it didn't look like anything whenever we came by to give him food. He has a job, yet never seemed to buy food. He always calls me up demanding some of mine or demands it from my mother. Well, on Christmas, I was terribly ill. I had called out of work and wrote on Facebook that I didn't want to be bothered. The doctor said it was just a cold, but it was horrible. Whenever I breathed, I wheezed and rattled. I felt like I was in no fit state to do anything. However, my ever-loving family didn't accept sickness as a reason to skip Christmas, so my brother came and complained as he dragged me out to take me to our mother's. In the car, he smoked and said I was faking my sickness as I kept having coughing fits. He went on and on about how Mom was selling the house right from underneath him, how the house belonged to him, how Mom gave away Grandma's car to our sister when it was his, and so forth. I was trying to stay awake, but I wasn't well, and him telling me all the things that should belong to him that weren't actually his was boring me. We got to my mom's, and it was a nice time. Well, I think it was. I fell asleep and was woken up for dinner. My brother was mad that he got yelled at for smoking near a sick person. Dinner was the eye-opener. My mother: "It is so nice that you are allowing your brother to live with you. I had no idea you were so close." Me: "What? No, Have some more water. You sound terrible," said my brother, forcing water onto me. I was worried he had no place to stay. "But you are helping him," my mom went on. "Yes, she is, like a good big sister. She invited me to come take care of her. Because she is special and all," said my brother. "No, I didn't. He's not." I tried to say but ended up in a coughing fit. "She didn't invite you to stay?" asked my mom. "She did," cried my brother before he leaned over and whispered to me. "Don't be a wimp, you inappropriate term. I am not able to have anyone else on my lease or to live with me," I choked out after my fit. "We'll lie," said my brother cheerfully. I glared at him. "How will I lie? I am special and special people can't lie," I snapped as best I could at him. Well, that ended dinner. My brother was supposed to take me home. However, Mom offered to drive me. My brother refused and insisted that he would. I had learned from my sisters, other brother, father, and mother that my brother had been going around telling everyone that he was moving in with me. He had told them that I was going to get a bigger place and he wouldn't even have to pay rent. I couldn't believe it. He drove me home. I was mad, but he was going on about how homeless he was when we were going back. So stupidly, after he brought in the gifts from others to me, I allowed him to stay the night. I figured, it's Christmas. It is a nice thing to do after all. Well, this was a terrible idea. He smoked, so my place smelt like a smoker's place. He blasted the TV even after I told him not to. "The neighbors won't mind," he said. He raided my kitchen to the point I needed to go food shopping right away. And he wouldn't leave until I grabbed the phone and told him I was going to call the cops and then Mom. After his visit, he kept telling people he was going to live with me. I took longer to recover from the cold, and while cleaning up the mess he left, I found soot marks and even a syringe full of strange stuff mixed in with my cat's toys. Mind you, I found that syringe by the fact I almost got it in the foot. My home looked like a rock star trashed it. My friends came over and helped me finish cleaning. As the new year hit, my mom thanked me for helping my brother, and I told her, "I am not. I love him, for goodness sake, I do love him, but he is not welcome in my home ever again. I am so mad at him, I don't want to see him. But he is homeless. His fault. He had over a year to find a place. I found one in less than 30 days when you guys kicked me out of the house. But he is your brother. Who partied like a rock star in my apartment and smoked around someone who can't breathe? Yeah, not having it. Also, there was a syringe here. You are diabetic. Is it yours? Nope. I'll ask your brother." Thought that was the end of it. But a few days after that, my friend and I were at my place when my brother stopped in to check on me. As I was now mostly recovered, He explained that the syringe contained a substance that he said he was injecting into warts to get rid of them, and he demanded it back. I told him I threw it out. He offered to take out my trash, which I repeatedly told him I was fine. He finished by giving me a long-winded speech about how useful it would be to have him live with me. I literally had to push him out the door and tell him I'd rather be eaten alive by piranhas than ever live with him again, as he is a nightmare. As it stands, it has been about 9 months since then. He is now mooching off his friend and still telling anyone who will listen how he turned me down when I asked him to live with me. My mom is honestly getting a bit of a laugh out of it since my brother has been changing the story so much over all this time. I haven't seen him since I made him leave, and honestly, I am good with that. Story 4. So my parents divorced when I was still very young, and my dad got remarried to another woman who turned out to be difficult. She didn't start acting like one towards me until I was much older, though around 7 or 8. So first, I was 10 or 11 at the time, and I am very socially awkward. I have Asperger's syndrome, and at the time, I was undiagnosed. Anyway, it was a Sunday night, and I was putting my clothes away in my closet like the good child I was trying to be. Eventually, I finished up and went into the other room to watch TV. A few minutes later, my stepmother comes in upset and tells me to come back to my room. I follow her into my open closet. This is how the conversation follows. Stepmother, want to tell me why you put your clothes up wrong? Me, confused and nervous as heck, what do you mean? She grabs a shirt off the hanger. You put your shirts on wrong, and now you have stretched it. In truth, I don't really care how the shirt looks, as long as the message on the shirt is okay, and it's not like ripped in half or anything. I only care if it fits. I look at it confused as to what I should be looking for. I don't see anything wrong with it. Figuring out this was going nowhere. How did you put this shirt on the hanger? I show her. I put it in through the top because it was easier than to go through the bottom because they would get more wrinkled that way. And then she would yell at me for that. Condescendingly, you are doing it wrong. Well, can I explain why I did it that way? Getting louder and more demeaning, don't you dare argue with me. I am not arguing. I just want to explain myself. Stop arguing back and listen to me. Once again, do you want to know why I did it that way? This goes on for about 15-20 minutes with her just yelling in my face about how I am arguing back to her for showing me how to put my clothes up. Nothing but non-stop shouting and her constantly cutting me off, saying I am arguing and not being respectful. Finally, I just decide to be quiet and let her speak since this whole thing was going nowhere. She shows me the way I am supposed to put up my clothes, and I am trying my best not to cry. She finally finished, and then she said something else. I forgot what exactly, but it was something I had been trying to say before the whole debacle occurred. Me. Okay, can I just say this one thing? This is where my stepmother cranked the crazy level up to a 10. Stepmother, that is it. We are going to talk to your father. She dragged me downstairs to the exact other side of the house where my dad was doing work on the computer. I was bawling my eyes out. All that flooded my head was, I am done for. I am done for. We enter the office, and I sit in a chair in the corner, and I am crying like crazy, saying, I am done for. I legitimately felt like my dad would believe her over me because she is, supposedly, the adult here. She tells him her side and blatantly lies to him, saying I was arguing back and wouldn't let her teach me. She said that no matter what, I wouldn't let her talk and was being disrespectful the whole time, when really, it was the other way around. So my dad pulled me aside with her in the office there looking at me. Finally, I get a chance to speak my mind. I told him what happened and why I did what I did. I also told him that I was trying to explain myself, but she would not let me speak and made up the whole arguing back nonsense. Luckily, my dad believed me, and I got away without repercussions. After a while, my dad and she started fighting a lot, and eventually, my dad divorced her, which was a win finally. Would you like me to explain or break down any part of this revised version?